Good morning, everybody. I want to try something new. I've never had mead, and everyone says it's the shit. So I'm gonna try making some mead. And this is a recipe that I found online. Uh, let's see the ingredients. As far as I think, mead is just honey that's fermented. Okay, but from what I understand, if you let that age for quite a while, it'll taste like kind of like a wine with a little bit of honey notes. And you can use different types of honey to get different flavors. And it takes about 2 to 3 weeks to ferment, from everything that I've saw. And it also even after it's fermented, you need to rack it, which is simply siphoning it off of the yeast that's went dormant and all the ingredients that you have that settled to the bottom, and then letting it continue to finish the last little bit of fermenting, degassing, and in a separate container, and aging it. So that's your secondary, and that should be minimum of a month. Most people are saying 3 to 6 months is a young mead. Like 3 years is probably like a good mead. So I don't think we're going to wait 3 years, but we'll wait a while. And here's what I have. This is the recipe that I found. It's a fairly simple mead. Okay, so we use black tea and some orange peels, and then what I did was I just peeled an orange and I cut most of the white part off so you can kind of see the back of the little pitted back area of the peel. I cut all that white stuff off because that carries bitter flavors, and not all of it, but close, so it was close to the skin. And let them dry out. And then raisins, and I have 6 ounces of raisins and orange peel, a pile about that big. Let's see. So basically 1 big spoonful of orange peels. That's a soup spoon. There's nothing super scientific about this. I'm not into making a set recipe of anything and repeating it over and over. I like experimenting and trying new things, and if I get something I really like, I'm going to still try to tweak it and get something even I like more out of it. So that's just how I do things. I measure my ingredients with my heart, not with my measuring cup. But there's 6 ounces of raisins, about half a package of 12 ounces, and I chop those up into little fine pieces. You kind of see that through the bag. And just my theory is that allows the yeast to get at them. And over here I'm hydrating my yeast. It's just starting to work. And you don't have to do this. That's basically, you just put some like 80-degree water, 70, 75, somewhere in there, in a container. And I put a pinch of sugar, not table sugar. I use raw sugar, but it doesn't matter. And then my yeast, and I used the same thing about a regular, like this spoon wasn't even quite full. It was just a level spoon worth of yeast that I put in there. And you don't have to activate stuff, but the advantages of doing that are you know that your yeast are working and they're alive if it starts foaming up. And you can see that yeast is already starting to foam up, and it's just been sitting there a few minutes. And if I let it sit there for an hour, that foam would travel way up to here. It'd just be a big cake of foam. And then you need raw honey. You don't want honey that you bought at the store. Most honeys that you buy at the store aren't really honey. They contain a little bit of honey, but it's mostly like soy syrup. Honestly, it's made in China. And there's nothing wrong with it. It tastes good. It's like fake maple syrup. Doesn't have any maple in it, but it still tastes yummy on your pancakes. But for what we're doing, we don't want that. We want the real honey, so you're gonna have to spend a little money. I got this one off Amazon for like 30 bucks. That's 6 pounds. And Mead is not cheap, but I'm gonna get 2.5 gallons. And most of the ratios are anywhere, I think for like, let's see, for a 5-gallon ferment, so you'd need like a 6.5 gallon fermenter if you want to make 5 gallons, and you put 12 pounds of honey in it. And if you look around online, you can find the cheapest place I found was $55 for 10 pounds of honey. Or maybe that was 20, I can't remember. I think that was 10 pounds of honey, or maybe it was right at 12. It was enough to make 5 gallons. You're going to spend 50 bucks. And I spent 30 bucks to make that because it's a little less quantity. But like I said, make sure you get honey. So if you probably... And I'm trying to make a mead and show you guys. We'll see how it turns out, but if it turns out really yummy, it's one that the ingredients are readily available. You can use bread yeast. I did use wine yeast, but totally not necessary. You can go to the grocery store and get Flashman's yeast and not have to order anything. But it's real easy to order winemaker's yeast off Amazon, or go to your local brew shop. Raisins are at the grocery store. Oranges, black tea, grocery store, honey. You can search around your local area if you're in a little bit bigger city or something, and you could probably find a local distributor of honey. But if you don't want to do that, just go off Amazon and get you some. You can try the like Whole Foods or something like that, but I don't know. I wouldn't trust it. I want some honey that comes from the company that puts it in the bottle. Then I know it should be raw honey and the real stuff. And then also, let's see, I already poured some water in the bucket. I sanitized the bucket, sanitized everything that's going to go in and touch anything. I'm going to use spring water, and I wouldn't recommend using tap water, but you could. If you have a well, you're thinking, oh, I don't have chlorine, I have a well, but a lot of wells have iron in it, which will flavor your wine. So basically we're making honey wine. So you're going to need to worry about that. And if you use tap water, it has chlorine in it. That's not good for your yeast at all. And depending on where you live, your pH of your water, they range way differently, which you need about a 5 pH for your yeast. Our water doesn't ferment very well at all. It will, but it's super slow. I've tried it just as an experiment, and it doesn't ferment very well. So I generally use distilled water, but this you want some of those flavors that like you would get off the spring water, so that's what I went with. And what I'm doing here is I'm warming. I just got hot water in the sink. I already poured half the water in. I'm warming that up so it will. I can pour some of the warm in this after I drain some of the honey out, so I can swish the ball around because honey's so thick and everything, you know. And I don't really want to heat the honey up. I don't want to lose the natural yumminess of it and change it into something. So with that, we will. I'm gonna let you go and start putting some ingredients together. I'm just gonna pour it into this bucket. Is all I'm doing. Okay, there's you can see the honey. You see it's down at the bottom. I have to stir it a lot. There is, as you can see, that when I poured it out, the honey was all coating the inside. Then I put some warm water in it, and I shook it all up real good. And then it smells good. We will pour that in there. And I'm kind of doing this for a reason, not because I'm too lazy to bend down and pour things. And I think we'll give that like one more little rinse with the kind of warm water here. Swirl it around in there, shake it up. Oh shoot, I shook so hard I turned the video off. There goes the last of it. It's probably just clear water coming out now. If I hold my stuff up here and pour it in there, I'm getting air bubbles, aerating the water. It's getting oxygen down into the water. And the yeast like that when they start out. So now there's a gallon. We're going to make 2.5 gallons. So I'm going to start stirring it up, and that'll help aerate the water as well. And I stir it up here so I don't make it. Honey's just a big sticky mess. So by stirring it up here, I get a not splash around so much out of the bucket. And you can kind of feel at the bottom. And you should definitely, if you're using a plastic bucket like this, you should use a plastic stir with it. I have a big metal spoon that I use for mashing in the pots, but it scratches your buckets, and that leaves a good place for bacteria and stuff to hide in them scratches. So it's just a good practice to use plastic on plastic. None of this stuff is super cheap. I mean, it's not terribly expensive either, but it costs a little bit of money, so you want to get as long as life out of it as you can. Boy, whole kitchen's smelling like honey. Okay, so that seems to be fairly stirred up. Let's put some more water in it. Okay, I'm going to shut you down for a minute and get everything open and ready. Okay, now we're ready. Now let's continue to pour stuff in. Oh, there's a big mess. Don't want to pour too fast so it doesn't chug a lug and splash out everywhere. See all that nice air bubbles forming down there? That's aerating our water. That's aerating our wash. Okay, that is 2 gallons. And with our honey, that makes 2.5 gallons. I'm going to stir it up some more. Seems like it's mixing up pretty well. The bottom doesn't seem to be thin. We're not like pulling up anything off our stirrer. But we'll stir it for a good long while just to make sure. Okay, you get the idea. I'll come back when I'm done stirring. Okay, we're all stirred up now. So let's start adding some ingredients. Here's some. We'll put the orange peels in. That kind of gives you a better idea how much I'm using on mine. And that's going to give it just a hint of citrus, hint of orange. I want to taste the honey and the mead and those flavors as it ferments. I don't want the orange to be the predominant. Same with the raisins. And as I said, I chopped them up, and because they're just a raisin with a skin on it, you know, it's a grape with a skin on, all dried up. So I want my yeast to be able to get in there and get the sugars out of the raisins and be able to add that flavor to my mash. And again, these should just be just a slight hint to give it some character. And so honey is the predominant flavor that we're going to have in this. And then let's get it's just black tea. I'm sure you could use other kinds of tea. I haven't seen much in the way of using tea to ferment other than it gives it a mouthfeel. And there's the tea in the little tea bag. I could just threw the whole tea bag in there, huh? That would have been easy to get out, but I think I'll just get it in there and let float all over the place and do its thing. Okay, here goes. Okay, here goes the tea in. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to use quite a whole bag. About 3/4 of a bag of tea. Seems like should be enough. And let's stir all that in. And I was going to add yeast nutrient, but I was out. I thought I had some, and I used it all up on my last batch, but this should still ferment okay. If you want to throw in a couple of teaspoons of yeast nutrient for a 2.5 gallon batch, that would be a good amount. Can't hurt for sure. Some people will tell you that the raisins have all kinds of nutrients for the yeast, and they do have some, but not a ton. Okay, see, there's our yeast. You can see it's foaming all up real nice, so we know that it's alive and working well. Let's see, you don't need a lot of water, just a little bit, and you don't have to use the pinch of sugar. That's just something that I do. Okay, and then we're going to pour our yeast in. And I always want to get all of my yeast, so here I'll use a little bit of the wash to rinse the cup out. And that's how we make a mead. We'll gently stir it now. You can see the orange peel floating. Definitely honey in there. And let's see, we're gonna put our lid on. The lid's already sanitized. And here's our lock. Right now it's empty. And I'm going to put some that's some sugar wash that's been distilled, and it's at 190 proof. They don't have to worry about gnats or anything getting in there. They don't like that high proof stuff. And it keeps everything nice and sanitary. And if a little bit happens to suck back inside of there, it's not going to kill my mash. A couple of drops, or my wash. And that's exactly how you make a mead. And I will come back in a minute and show you when it starts bubbling and how long. Let's see, it is, okay, I know what time it is, and I'll get back when it's just started to bubble. Okay, it's the next day, and as you can see, it's the fermentation is moving along just fine. I didn't get back to it making the video yesterday. It started fermenting, or started blowing bubbles at about an hour and a half into the sitting there, and now it's bubbling away very nicely. Let's see. What I didn't show, I took a gravity reading. I forgot to do it before I picked yeast, but I did it after, so it's not 100% accurate, but it's close. And it came out to a 1.080 of gravity, or that's about 11% ABV. And so if this ferments down to 0, it will have an 11%. So mead is usually pretty strong. You could get it down to like a 6 or a 7 if you wanted, by watering it down more, but then you're losing some of those flavors. And you could add less water and get up to higher, like a 14 or a 15, or if you wanted to use like champagne yeast, you could make it 18 or 20%. It would be really strong. But 11% will be, that's what I want to keep it at. That's what I'm happy. 11 or 12 is generally what I go for with most of my fermentations. Let's see. If you didn't want to, if you don't have a dedicated bucket to make small amounts like this, a couple gallons, or even up to 4 gallons, maybe 4.5 would be pushing it. You wouldn't want to go much more than that, because you take a chance of overfilling the bucket. You need to leave a little room for it to expand during the fermentation. And you can get one of these white buckets at Home Depot, and Lowe's has the blue buckets. Those are also the right kind of buckets. Don't use the orange Home Depot buckets. You need a food grade plastic bucket, and they're pretty cheap, and you can buy a lid like this, or you can see on this one I bought a bung and drilled a hole in a regular lid. And just stick the bung in there. I used a spade bit and drilled a 1-inch hole. Stuff the bung in there, it works fine. Let's see, you can use a glass bottle. You don't have to buy a glass bottle. You could just go buy a gallon of wine or something and use that bottle after you finish the wine. And you don't have to put one of these bubblers in it if you don't want. You can put a balloon over it, or even a rubber. Just don't use that rubber with spermicide on it. It could kill your yeast. Let's see, but you should poke a couple holes in it with a needle if you're going to use a balloon or something like that to keeping carbon dioxide in, which helps bacterias and the virus that starts vinegar from happening. So basically, as long as we keep this nice and sealed and clean, we'll never have to worry about it turning into vinegar. The fact, you'll hear rumors saying that thyme turns, if you let your fermentation go too long, it turns to vinegar, and that's a wives' tale. It's a virus that happens in the fermentation, that bacteria gets in there, and that creates the vinegar. It eats the alcohol. That's not there automatically. That has to be introduced into it. And let's see. But if you use the gallon, leave a little headroom. Just look up online and use that amount of honey, like, I don't know, probably 3 pounds, maybe 2 pounds, depending on ABV you want to make. I would say right around 2.5 or 3 pounds would be what you'd want. And then like half a package of that Flashman yeast, that would work fine. And then like I said, I added the tea and the black tea and the orange peels, just to give it a little more complexities, a little more than just the flavor of the mead. So you can do that as well, or you don't have to, or you can look around. But I would suggest starting out fairly simple. This is my first time making mead, and the best way to do it is do baby steps. So start off as simply as you can to ensure that you succeed, and then build from there, because you don't know what you're doing. You've never done this. If you don't know what mead tastes like, you don't know what is going to be good with mead. So what this guy that makes this one mead on a channel or a website and says it's the best thing ever, you may not even like. You haven't tasted it. So give yourself a base to start at and move up, and you'll be more successful. You'll have more fun. You'll make things you like. Fermenting things takes a little while, and you have to work your way into it, and it's something fun and enjoyable to a lot of people, but obviously you have to like what you made, or it's not any fun. And if you just try to dive in and do complex things,
I guess it's like that with anything. If you're woodworking and your first project is a laminate covered hutch with intricate designs with leaded glass windows in it, you're probably not going to work out so well, and you're going to give up woodworking. So allow yourself to be successful when you try your new stuff. And I think with that, I'm going to call this a video, and we'll definitely get back when I'll check this probably in about. I'll just do a quick little update in a week. We'll open it up and see what it looks like inside, and see how the bubbles are doing now, and we'll look at how the bubbles are doing in a week, and then we'll do it again in 2 weeks, and in 3 weeks, and then probably in the 3-week range we'll rack it out and allow it to age, and we'll definitely do a taste at that point. And I don't know, maybe I'll take a gallon and run a gallon of it through the still once it's done fermenting. I'll see what I think. And I'm gonna wrap it up. So lots of love, everyone. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Bye.